Hello everyone, I am Srinath.
And I'm Kavya. Welcome back to Chaos Chess.
Today we are going to be learning Major's piece Checkmate.
So, first we are going to be learning about double rook checkmate.
Here is a position that I have set up. White has two rooks, which is double rooks, and a king. Black has a king. Let's see how to checkmate black with the two rooks. A checkmate is when the king is attacked and no piece can block the check. This is called a checkmate. In this position, black only has a king, so it's clear that none of the pieces can block the check. Now we should have to try to give a check, and the black king also doesn't have any squares to move. We should give a check in this way. So let me tell you the answer now. So the answer for this is RG8. So let me tell you why. This is because the king cannot move anywhere. So that's why this is called as a checkmate.
So this was double rook checkmate. Now let me give you a puzzle to solve. So this is the puzzle. I want you to solve this puzzle in 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4,
and 5. Time's up!
So let me tell you the answer for this. The answer for this is F7. This is a little tricky. So let me tell you why it is RG7. It is RG7 because when you play it's RF7 because when we play rook to F7, it is a check and the king cannot move anywhere. And no piece can block this also. So that's why this is a checkmate. Now let me give you one more tricky puzzle for you to get clear with this concept. So this is the position. I give you 5 seconds to solve this.
1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Time's up!
So the
Answer is
answer is RF1. Rook to F1. Because when the rook is on F1, the king cannot move anywhere. The king cannot move to C2 because of the king. It cannot move to B2 also because of the king, and it cannot go to A1 also. And there is no piece to block the king either. That is why it is a checkmate. Now I hope the double rook checkmate is clear with you. Now let's move ahead to the single rook checkmate. So this is the position that I have set up for the single rook checkmate. This position is very simple. As we go ahead, I'll give you more tough positions. So I've told you what is a checkmate. I'll repeat. A checkmate is when the king cannot, when there is an attack on the king and the king cannot move. Plus, no piece can block the check. So here there are no pieces here. So it's black to play. It's clearly shown, and there are no pieces for the white except the king. So once we give a check, no piece can block it. So this is very simple. So I want you guys to find the answer. I'll give you 5 seconds to find the answer for this. 1, 2, 3, 4,
and 5. Time's up!
So let me tell you the answer. Since in this we have to only find the check, so there's only one check. there are two checks, but you have to find the perfect one. So the two checks are rook to a7 and rook to f1. So which do you think is a mate? I'll give you one more second. 2 more seconds. One, two. So let me tell you the answer. Let's analyze it first. So if we move a rook to a7, the king can move to b1. So, this is not a checkmate. You might be thinking, if we play rook to a7, the king cannot move to d2. That is true, but the king can move to b1. So this is the wrong move. Let's see the right move now. So the second move was rook to e1. So let's play the rook to e1. Rook to e1 is a checkmate. Why? Because no piece can block the check, or the king cannot move anywhere. The king cannot go to b1 because of the rook. King cannot go to b2 because of the king, and the king cannot also go to a2 because of the king. So this is a checkmate. Now let's move on to a slightly tougher position. So before moving ahead, let me tell you what is opposition, because this is very important to learn single rook checkmate. So when the two kings are opposite to each other, it's called opposition. But they should have odd number of squares in between them, which is they can have 1 square, 3 squares, or 5 squares. So if the king is on c3, one king is on c3 and one king is on c6, it is not in opposition because there are even number of squares between the kings. But if the king is on c2 or c4, or if this king is on c8, it is the opposition because there will be odd number of squares in between them. So now I'll tell you about how, now I'll give you a more tricky position of single rook checkmate. So this is the position. Now there is an opposition between the kings and it is black to play. So whenever we are trying to do a checkmate, we should keep on reducing the squares for our opponent's king. So if we keep our rook to f5, then it reduces the square. When the rook was in f6, the king can come here. Yeah. So when we play king to f5, it reduces the squares. So if the king goes here, then we do opposition, or then the king will come here. Then we can come here and reduce the squares. How? So when the rook was here and the king is here. So now the king can come to d4, or it can also come to d3. Now after we play rook to d5, the king cannot go to either of the places. So we have reduced the squares. Now the king will move here, then we come here, again reducing the squares. Now, now if the king goes here, then we again reduce the squares. The king comes here, we get the king and rook more closer so that we can checkmate the king. Now if the king comes here, then we play here. The king comes here, then we reduce the squares. King comes here, we reduce the squares. Okay, king comes here, then we again reduce the squares. And once king comes here, there is an opposition between the both kings. There is the opposition. So we can give a check with the rooks, and this is a checkmate. So this is a little more tricky position. Once you solve more positions, you will get to know how to do this. So to learn single rook checkmate, opposition is very important. And sometimes you might land in positions when the king has opposition, but the rook is on b3. Here you cannot give any check, because if you give a check, the king will capture, and If we give a check like this, the king moves to the other side and it again has more squares. So in these kind of cases, what you should do is you should take the rook far away from the king, and when the king tries to come up, when the king tries to come up, you should get your king up, and then the king tries to come down like this. And now you don't get your king down. You play a waiting move like rook b7 so that the opponent's king comes up and you can checkmate. So this is single rook checkmate. Now let's move ahead.
The queen checkmate. Checkmating with the most powerful piece. I have set up this position. It's very simple. So I'll give you 5 seconds to find this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Time's up. So the answer is Queen B2. I'll tell you why. Because the king cannot move anywhere and no pieces he can block with because he don't have any other piece.
So it's a checkmate.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you how to get this to this position, because this is the final position which I have given you. Now I'm going to teach you how to get this queen and queen checkmate to this position.
In the queen checkmate also, opposition is very important. Same like single rook checkmate.
And in this also we will have to reduce the squares for the king to checkmate it.
So in this we have to be reduce the king squares. So I will play queen b8. Queen to b8.
Because we are reducing the squares of the king. So when we play queen b8, the king cannot come to b6, b5 and b4. That is why we are playing queen to b7. So king cannot come to this file at all. All these. It cannot come to all these. And it can only come to these squares here, here. Okay, that is why we are playing queen to b8. Later it can come to these squares also, but it can go only in the a file. It cannot come to the b file, and that is why we are playing queen to b8.
Now we should try to make a opposition.
So to make the opposition, we should get the king closer to the opponent's king. So now it's black's move. If black plays here, we get it closer. Black plays here, we get it more closer. And finally, when there is opposition, wherever the opponent plays, if opponent plays here, we will play queen to b6 and checkmate. And if opponent plays king to a4, we will play queen to b4 and make a checkmate. So this was queen checkmate. Now that's it for today. And before leaving, let me tell you the summary.
Today we learn double rook checkmate and single rook checkmate and queen checkmate.
So that was the summary. And we also learned that a very important thing, that opposition is very important in single rook checkmate and queen checkmate. And there is one more important thing in both of these. When we have to checkmate, we have to reduce the squares of the king. This applies to all checkmate playing patterns. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.